By the time Vivian built her criminal empire on my stolen ranch, I already owned the mineral rights beneath every single mansion in her development. But let me back up. Picture this. I'm dodging mortars in Eastern Europe serving my country when I get a call that makes my blood run cold. A power-tripping HOA witch named Vivian has legally sold my grandfather's ranch. 1,500 acres of prime American soil that's been in my family since 1892. The same land where my Purple Heart grandfather is buried. Sold for pennies on the dollar while I was bleeding for freedom overseas. I come home to the sound of gravel crunching under surveyors' boots, watching strangers stake out my family cemetery. Vivian thought she'd stolen everything from a broken veteran who couldn't fight back. What she didn't know was that Grandpa had left me one final gift, buried in those 1960s property documents, legal ownership of the ground beneath 50 luxury homes worth $47 million combined. My name is Staff Sergeant Ezra Thornfield. I'm a third-generation rancher who just spent 18 months keeping the peace overseas. While I was gone, my grandfather passed away, and my well-meaning but overwhelmed sister hired a local company to manage the property taxes. Big mistake. Enter our villain, Vivian Ashworth, president of the Willow Creek Estates HOA, a woman who drives a white Mercedes G-Wagon and treats tennis outfits like business attire. Her husband is a city councilman, which should tell you everything you need to know about how she gets things done. I came home from deployment, expecting to see the rolling pastures of my childhood. Instead, I found construction crews and sold signs stabbing into my family's soil like daggers. 800 acres gone. Allegedly sold to the HOA for a fraction of its value due to a tax delinquency that my bank records proved never existed. But what made my blood boil was the chain-link fence they'd erected around our family cemetery, enclosing my grandfather's fresh grave. That's when Vivian appeared, riding up in her golf cart like a suburban warlord. Military housing. Allowance doesn't cover property taxes, does it, soldier boy? She said, shoving forged documents at me. Your grandfather should have planned better. This is what happens when military families think they're above civic responsibility. I was standing there in my uniform, fresh off an 18-month deployment defending her freedom, and this parasite was lecturing me about patriotism. Leave our property immediately, she threatened, speed-dialing what I assumed was her personal sheriff. Or I'll have you arrested for trespassing. I had just $247 in my savings account. The local attorney, Vivian's golf partner, had a conflict of interest. The county clerk's office had lost all original property records. Standing there, watching strangers stake out my grandfather's grave, I made a silent promise. Vivian had no idea who she was messing with. Vivian wasn't content with just stealing my land. She wanted to destroy my reputation. Within 48 hours, she filed a restraining order, a complete fabrication claiming I'd threatened her with military-style violence. A local judge rubber-stamped it. Suddenly, I was banned from half my own county. She installed military-grade security cameras pointed at my remaining property and began posting on the neighborhood app about my concerning PTSD episodes. But military intelligence training doesn't disappear when you take off the uniform. While she was playing social media games, I was playing chess. I drove 200 miles to the state archives and spent my last $47 on gas and parking. There, in the dusty basement files, I found it. Proof that my property was never delinquent on taxes. Every payment was documented. The funds had been systematically redirected to the wrong account through a convenient clerical error, a classic scam. But the real treasure came from a different file. While investigating her, we discovered the HOA had never properly incorporated with the state. They had been operating as an illegal entity for 3 years, collecting fees and making rules they had no power to enforce. Her entire kingdom was a house of cards. But here's where it gets juicy. We also discovered Vivian had personally profited. Her landscaping company, Ashworth Aesthetics, received a $180,000 contract the same month they acquired my property. She had literally paid herself with money from selling my inheritance. But the real bombshell, the one that changed the entire war, was buried in Grandpa's old papers. My grandfather had quietly purchased the subsurface mineral rights beneath the entire Willow Creek development back in 1963. All 50 of those luxury homes were technically built on property that now belonged to me. I could legally demand the removal of every structure. The estimated cost, $15 million. Alternatively, they could purchase the rights from me at fair market value, an estimated $45 million. When my new lawyer, a pro bono powerhouse, who specialized in veterans' rights, broke the news to Vivian's legal team, their $800 an hour attorney nearly choked. The foundation of their entire community, literally and figuratively, belonged to the veteran they had tried to destroy. Desperation makes people dangerous, and Vivian was drowning in it. She went nuclear. Sabotage. My water well was mysteriously cracked, a $12,000 repair. My cattle fence was professionally cut, leading to one of my grandfather's prize Angus cows being killed on the highway. The news headline read, "Troubled Veteran's Negligence Causes Highway Accident." She planted evidence in my truck and filed a false DUI report. But every act of sabotage only strengthened our case. Sarah, my lawyer, was documenting everything, building a criminal conspiracy case that was reaching federal levels. Then my intelligence network, a group of her other victims, delivered the final piece of the puzzle. Vivian was planning to flee to a non-extradition country. She had a one-way ticket to Zurich, booked with a credit card linked to the Community Pool Maintenance Fund. The community meeting was set. It was supposed to be her final victory lap, where she would present her last lowball offer before disappearing. The parking lot looked like a military base. 30 motorcycles and pickup trucks from veterans groups formed a perimeter. Inside, the room was packed. Vivian strode to the podium and began her speech about resolving this unfortunate misunderstanding. That's when I stood up. "Vivian," I said, my voice carrying through the silent room, "before we discuss money, let's discuss ownership." The projector lit up with the 1963 mineral rights documents, my grandfather's signature clear as day. I announced that I owned the ground beneath every one of their homes. The gasps were audible. I laid out their options. Purchase the rights for $47 million or face complete evacuation. But I wasn't finished. Margaret, one of her elderly victims, stood up and played an audio recording she had captured at her bridge club. It was Vivian's wine-loosened voice, bragging about how easy it was to forge tax documents and steal veteran property. That's when the FBI agent who had been sitting quietly in the back stood up. "Vivian Ashworth," he said, his badge gleaming under the lights, "you're under arrest for wire fraud, conspiracy, and violations of the Service Members Civil Relief Act." The room erupted. As they led her away in handcuffs, her designer, heels echoing on the floor, the 30 veterans stood at attention in a silent salute. Not for her, but for a promise kept. Vivian got 5 years in federal prison and was ordered to pay back every stolen penny. The HOA was dissolved. I sold the subsurface rights to the homeowners for a fraction of their value, just enough to cover my legal fees and restore my grandfather's ranch. The rest of the settlement money established the Thornfield Veterans Scholarship Fund, ensuring that no military family in our county would ever have to choose between serving their country and protecting their home again.